this happened to me during spring break of last year. I haven't told anyone outside my family because, honestly, it sounds made up. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard, and I haven't slept through the night since. I was staying with my cousin in a small town upstate, just for a quiet week away from school in the city. Everything was normal at first, peaceful even. But on the third night I saw someone standing outside my window, and every night after that he got a little closer. I was 17 at the time, just about to finish junior year. My parents had booked a trip to Florida, but I didn't feel like tagging along. Too many little cousins, too much noise. So instead, I went to stay with my cousin Josh for the week. He lived in this quiet town in upstate New York, in a house that backed up to a stretch of woods. No neighbors to the left or right, just trees and birds. It was the kind of place where the nights are dead silent, no traffic, no sirens. Honestly, it was a nice break from the chaos I was used to. Josh and I would spend the days playing Xbox, walking the trails behind his house, grabbing fast food. Just chill, nothing crazy. I stayed in the guest room upstairs, a simple space with a small desk, a twin bed, and one tall window that looked out over the backyard. The first couple of nights I slept like a rock. That kind of deep, peaceful sleep that feels impossible back home. But by night 3, everything changed. It started with a sound. That third night, I woke up around 2:30 a.m. for no real reason. You know how sometimes your body just knows something's off? I sat up, groggy, the room lit faintly by the moonlight coming through the window. And that's when I saw it. A man, standing in the yard, not moving, not pacing, just standing there, directly in line with my window like he'd been watching. At first, I thought it was Josh pulling some kind of prank. But the guy was too tall, easily over 6 feet, broad shoulders, long arms just hanging at his sides. And there was something wrong with the way he stood. Perfectly still. Not shifting weight, not even blinking. I didn't move, I just stared, barely breathing, heart hammering in my chest. After maybe a full minute, which felt like 10, I finally leaned over to grab my phone. When I looked back, he was gone. No footsteps, no rustling leaves, just vanished. I didn't sleep much after that, kept the light on, listened for anything, nothing. The next morning, I told Josh about it. He brushed it off. Probably some hiker, he said. That trail gets weird people sometimes. But I knew what I saw, and hikers don't just stand still in people's yards in the middle of the night. Still, I tried to shake it off. We spent the day out, mall, pizza, normal stuff. But that night I couldn't stop thinking about the window. I kept the blinds closed. But around the same time, 2:30 a.m., I woke up again. This time, I heard something. A soft tapping. Not the kind you get from a tree branch or the wind. It was deliberate, like a finger. Tapping glass. 3 times, tap, tap, tap. I didn't open the blinds. I didn't want to know. I just sat there in the dark, holding my breath, praying it would stop. It did. But I didn't fall asleep again that night. The next day, I seriously considered calling the cops. But what would I even say? Hey, someone stood in my yard 2 nights in a row and maybe tapped on my window? I didn't have proof, no photo, no footprints, nothing. And Josh, he still wasn't taking it seriously. He laughed when I brought it up again. Dude, you're just freaking yourself out, too much caffeine. I didn't argue, I just stayed quiet. But that night I locked the windows, pulled the blinds tight, and went to bed with a kitchen knife on my nightstand. It was raining that night. Light rain, but enough to make everything outside slick and quiet. I was hoping that maybe the weather would keep him away. Maybe this was just some weird coincidence. Maybe I'd been dreaming. But around 2:40 a.m. the tapping came again. this time louder. 4 taps, rhythmic. Too precise. Tap, 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 tap. I grabbed the knife and sat up, trying to stay calm. I texted Josh, "Dude, are you awake?" No reply. The tapping stopped. For a second, I thought maybe it was over. I waited in the silence. And then, the back door creaked. The house had this old wooden back door with a rusty hinge. Josh always said he needed to oil it because it made this slow, eerie squeal whenever it opened. That's the sound I heard. From my bedroom, you can't see the back door, but I swear to God I felt it. The sound sliced through the rain and my chest tightened. I got up, quietly, and pressed my ear to my bedroom door. I could hear slow, deliberate footsteps, wet shoes on hardwood, coming down the hallway. I didn't know what to do. I was frozen, knife in hand. My heart was pounding so loud I thought whoever was in the hallway could probably hear it. Then the footsteps stopped, right outside my door. No knock, no voice, just breathing. Slow, raspy, intentional. And then, as suddenly as it began, silence. I stayed in that position for what felt like an hour, afraid to move, afraid to make a sound. Eventually, I cracked the door open just an inch. The hallway was empty, no wet footprints, nothing. And the back door still locked. I couldn't sleep after that. I stayed awake with the lights on, clutching that stupid kitchen knife, waiting for something else to happen. Nothing did. By morning, I was exhausted and still had no evidence, no idea if I was losing my mind or if someone had really been in the house. I was halfway convinced I'd imagined it all until Josh barged into my room around noon, holding his phone with this pale, frozen look on his face. "Bro, check this out." It was a video, his security cam. He'd installed a motion-activated one facing the backyard a few months back, mostly because of raccoons getting into the trash. He almost never checked it. But last night at exactly 2:37 a.m., the camera had gone off. He hit play. The footage was grainy, black and white, a bit distorted from the rain, but clear enough. There was a man, tall, wearing what looked like a hoodie and dark jeans, standing completely still just beyond the camera's edge. You couldn't see his face, but that wasn't the worst part. At 2:39, he slowly turned his head and looked directly at the camera, and smiled. Then, without blinking, he raised his hand, my bedroom window's location, and pointed straight at it. Josh and I just stood there, staring at the screen. My stomach dropped. That was the exact minute I heard the footsteps in the hallway. And then, at the very end of the footage, just before the motion ended, he did something I still can't explain. He waved. A long, deliberate wave, like he knew we'd be watching the next day. Josh muttered, "What the actual hell?" I didn't have words, just one thought looping in my head. He was never trying to get in. He already had. We called the police, showed them the footage. They took it seriously, sent a couple officers out, did a walk-around, asked questions, but there were no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, nothing missing. Just an eerie, lingering feeling, like he'd taken something else with him. Josh and I stayed at my parents' place for a week after that. We couldn't bring ourselves to sleep in that house again, not right away. I had nightmares every night. Of him standing there, smiling, waving, watching. Always just outside the frame of vision, just beyond the window. The cops never found him. They chalked it up to some disturbed trespasser, maybe a stalker who got bored, maybe a prank. But deep down, I never believed that. Because here's the part I haven't told anyone. A week later, I went back to grab some clothes. Josh stayed in the car while I ran in. On my nightstand, just beneath the lamp, was a Polaroid photo I know wasn't there before. It was me, sleeping, taken from the hallway through a crack in the door. Scrawled on the back, in shaky pen, You sleep like the window's still closed. I've stayed at a lot of Airbnbs, cheap ones, sketchy ones, even one where the ceiling leaked all night. But none of them ever left me feeling like I was being hunted. This happened during spring break last year. My friends and I booked a cabin that was way too cheap to be real, but the pictures looked amazing. Big fireplace, wood-paneled walls, no neighbors for miles. I remember joking in the group chat, if we go missing, at least the forest vibes will be on point. Turns out, I wasn't really joking, because what we found in that house made all of us question who had been there before us, and if they ever left. There were 5 of us, me, my girlfriend Laura, her cousin Jake, and our friends Tasha and Devin. We were all broke college kids, and spring break was coming up fast. Everyone else was posting pictures from beaches or flying to Cancun, but we were working with a tight budget. So Laura found this cabin on Airbnb. The listing called it the Rustic Retreat. It was buried in the woods about 2 hours outside Asheville, North Carolina. Big stone fireplace, old log cabin charm, hiking trails nearby. The price, insanely cheap, like suspiciously cheap. Jake was the only one who hesitated. He said something like, "Dude, it looks like the place from that horror game where people get hunted in the woods." We laughed it off, booked it for 4 nights, and piled into Devin's beat-up Jeep with way too many snacks and barely enough gas. The drive up was beautiful. Blue skies, trees starting to bloom, winding mountain roads. When we pulled up to the cabin, it actually looked awesome. A little run down, sure. Moss on the shingles, creaky porch, but nothing out of the ordinary. Inside was cozy, but clearly old school. Wood paneling, mismatched furniture, a weird amount of porcelain animal figurines in the corners. The kind of place your grandma might own and never update. No cell service, no Wi-Fi. That part annoyed Tasha, but honestly, we didn't care. We just wanted a break. Bonfires, drinks, ghost stories. That first night was exactly what we hoped for. We stayed up late telling stories by the fire, drinking cheap beer, and playing some ridiculous card game Jake brought. No one even mentioned the weird feeling we all kind of had, like the trees were watching us, because at that point we still thought we were alone. The weirdness started on the second morning. I woke up early, like around 6:30. Not sure why, but I felt wired. Everyone else was still out cold. I figured I'd get some air, so I threw on a hoodie and stepped out onto the porch. There was mist everywhere. Thick, low fog hanging in the trees, curling around the cabin like smoke. It was dead quiet. No birds, no wind, just the creaking of the old boards under my feet. And then I noticed something weird. There were footprints on the path that led around the side of the cabin. Bare feet, not boot prints, not sneakers. Just toes and heels, leading into the woods. They weren't ours. We'd all been wearing shoes the whole time, and no one was drunk enough to go wandering barefoot at night in the forest. Plus, they were fresh. The dew hadn't even settled on them yet. I stared at them for way too long, then called out, "Hello?" half expecting someone to step out of the fog with a dumb prank grin on their face. No one did. I told myself it was probably a local, maybe someone out for a walk or a hunter passing through early. Still, I felt uneasy. I took a quick picture of the footprints with my phone and went back inside, locking the door behind me. When I showed the others, they didn't freak out like I expected. Jake looked kind of spooked, but tried to play it off. "Probably just some hiker," he said. "People do weird stuff in the woods." We tried to shake it off and get on with the day. Hiked a nearby trail, grilled out, tried to act normal. But something was off. Later that afternoon, Tasha came back from the bathroom looking pale. She said, "Did one of you go through my bag?" We all said no. She held up her phone. Her lock screen image, one of her and her dog, had been changed to a picture none of us recognized. It was blurry, like taken in motion, but it looked like someone crouching in the woods, watching from behind a tree. Her Photos app didn't show the picture anywhere. It wasn't in her recent files, just on the lock screen. We all stared at it, trying to make sense of it. Then Jake checked his phone. Same thing, a different picture, same woods, same figure. That night, nobody slept well. That night, we locked every door and window. Even dragged the couch in front of the back door just to feel safer. But the feeling of being watched, it just wouldn't go away. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to footsteps on the porch. Not animal sounds, not branches snapping in the wind. Heavy, deliberate footsteps, slow, pacing. I sat up and held my breath. Tasha was sleeping in the next room. Jake was on the air mattress. No one else should have been up. The footsteps circled the cabin. Porch boards creaking softly, steadily, then silence. After a minute, I whispered, "Jake?" No answer. I got up, quietly walked to the living room. He was still passed out, earbuds in. No one else was awake. Then the doorknob jiggled. I froze. It wasn't aggressive, just a slow, steady twist, testing the lock. Whoever it was didn't knock, didn't say a word. Just tried the handle for a few seconds, then stopped. I backed away from the door, not daring to breathe. From the other room, I suddenly heard Tasha scream. I ran to her room, heart pounding. She was sitting up in bed, wide-eyed, pointing at her window. There was someone standing there, watching me, right at the glass. Jake stumbled in behind me, finally awake, asking what the hell was going on. We didn't sleep after that. We kept the lights on, kept watch in shifts, but none of us said it out loud. Whoever had been out there, they weren't trying to hurt us. Not yet. They were studying us, like they were waiting for something. By the time dawn crept in, we were all on edge. No one had really slept. Every branch tapping the window, every creak in the wood set us off. Tasha wanted to leave immediately, but Jake insisted on checking the property first. I didn't want to split up, but he grabbed a flashlight and headed out the back while we packed. Barely 2 minutes passed before we heard him shout, "Guys, you need to see this." We ran out and followed his voice to the tree line, where the woods thickened behind the cabin. There were symbols carved into the trees, dozens of them. Circles, jagged crosses, runes we didn't recognize. Deep gouges in the bark, fresh and deliberate. They weren't there when we arrived. Jake pointed to the ground. That's when we saw them. Footprints. Bare, human footprints. Several sets, all leading toward the cabin, none leading away. Then Tasha gasped and pointed to one of the symbols. It wasn't just carved into the bark, it was burned in. That's when we heard it. From deeper in the forest, laughter. Not loud, not maniacal, worse. It was quiet, software, like someone trying to hold it in. Jake turned in the direction of the sound and froze. "Don't move," he whispered. I followed his gaze. Just beyond the tree line, half hidden behind a trunk, was a figure. Still, watching. Not masked, not armed, just standing. Almost smiling. Then another, to the left, and another. 3 people, all barefoot, all just watching us. We bolted, sprinting back to the cabin, slamming the door behind us, locking everything we could. We didn't speak, just grabbed our stuff and left everything else. Didn't even look back as we tore down the dirt road. We made it back to the main road, breathless, hearts racing. No one said a word the entire drive home. It was like speaking out loud would make it all real again. When I got back to my apartment, I locked the door, shut all the blinds, and just sat there. My phone buzzed nonstop from the group chat. Everyone asking if we were okay, if we'd seen anything else. We hadn't, but that didn't mean it was over. The next morning, Jake called. He sounded off, like hollow. I went online, he said. Looked up that symbol, the one burned into the tree. There was a pause. It's tied to a group. Some kind of forest cult that used to operate in that area. Supposedly disbanded in the 90s after a string of disappearances. They'd mark trees to signal safe meeting points. He sent me a photo from an old forum. The symbol was identical. That same day, Tasha texted us a photo she found in her camera roll. It was taken the first evening, right after we arrived. Just a casual group shot on the porch. Only, none of us remembered seeing the figure in the background. Near the edge of the woods, barefoot, head slightly turned toward us. We don't know how long they were there. Watching. Maybe the entire weekend. None of us ever went back to that cabin. And even now, when spring rolls around, I don't go near the woods. Because the scariest part wasn't what we saw out there. It's what followed us back. We were just looking for a cheap way to spend spring break. Something chill, away from the crowds. My friend Tyler remembered this old campground his family used to visit when he was a kid. Said it had been shut down for years. No online listings, no maps. Just a dirt road and memories. But when we got there, someone had already set up camp. And whoever they were, they never showed themselves. But they knew our names. This happened in late April a few years back. It was me, Tyler, Jenna, and Marcus. 4 college friends trying to avoid the usual spring break chaos. No parties, no expensive trips. We just wanted peace and quiet. Tyler brought up this campground he used to visit with his family when he was younger. Said it was tucked way back in the forest near some lake in northern Georgia. It had been shut down for years. No permits, no running water. But apparently it was still accessible by a back road if you knew where to look. At first, the idea sounded kind of dumb. But the more we thought about it, the more it made sense. No one else would be out there. We could pitch tents, build a fire, drink, hang out. Cheap and isolated, that was the goal. So we packed up 2 cars, loaded them with gear, and followed Tyler's old directions into the woods. We lost cell service about 30 minutes before we even got to the trail. The road was narrow, unpaved, barely more than a dirt path. When we finally pulled up, it looked abandoned, just like he said. Broken down sign at the entrance, faded wooden cabins that had clearly been empty for years. But the space itself, the lake, the trees, it was beautiful, untouched. We parked, found a clearing near the lake, and set up camp. Everything felt fine at first. We laughed, cooked hot dogs over the fire, shared old stories. But when night fell, that's when the strangeness began. It started around 1 a.m. We were sitting around the fire, kind of winding down. The stars were insane out there, 0 light pollution, and the lake reflected everything like glass. Jenna was already half asleep in her camping chair, and Marcus was off by the trees finishing a smoke. That's when Tyler stopped mid-sentence and said, "Do you hear that?" At first, I didn't, but then I picked it up, a sound, very faint, from across the lake. It was like music. Not loud, just a few muffled notes like someone playing an old music box or a children's lullaby on repeat. We all stood up. Even Jenna snapped awake. "Is that coming from one of those cabins?" she asked. We scanned the other side of the lake, but it was too dark. You could barely make out the silhouette of the cabins beyond the trees. Marcus came jogging back and said, "You guys hear that too?" "That's not normal." Tyler tried to downplay it. It's probably just an animal or a phone someone left out there. But none of us were buying it. The sound was too deliberate, melodic, and worst of all, it was getting slightly louder. We didn't go check it out that night. We just added more wood to the fire and stayed close together until the music eventually stopped. But even after it went silent, we couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. Like the woods were watching. And then, when we woke up the next morning, there were footprints. Not ours. Barefoot. Leading from the edge of the lake, straight to our tents and back again. We all stood around those footprints the next morning in silence. They were fresh. The ground was still a little damp from the evening dew, so the impressions were clear. Wide feet, deep heel marks, toes fully outlined. No shoes, no socks, just bare human feet circling our tents. "Is this a joke?" Marcus asked, but no one was laughing. The weirdest part? The prints only circled our tents once. They didn't lead to any of the other nearby campsites, just ours. And then they went straight back to the lake and disappeared at the shoreline. We tried to play it cool. Maybe someone was messing with us. Maybe a drunk camper went for a swim and stumbled through by mistake. But deep down, I think we all felt it. That tight, invisible weight sitting on our shoulders. That day was off. The sun never quite felt warm. The breeze never quite felt refreshing. By the time night rolled around, we were too tense to relax. Nobody wanted to admit it, but we were all scanning the woods constantly, jumping at every crack of a twig. Around 11 p.m., Jenna said she had to pee, so Tyler offered to walk her to the bathroom station, which was maybe a 5-minute walk down the gravel trail. They took a flashlight and went off. Not even 10 minutes later, Jenna came running back into camp. Alone. "Where's Tyler?" I asked. Her face was pale. She could barely get the words out. "He told me to go ahead. He said he saw someone standing in the woods and wanted to see if they were okay." "What do you mean, someone?" I asked, standing up. "I don't know," she said, shaking. "It was like someone just standing there, not moving, just watching us from behind a tree." I didn't wait. I grabbed a second flashlight and Marcus and I sprinted down the path calling Tyler's name. We found him 5 minutes later, just standing in the middle of the trail, alone, his flashlight pointed at the trees. When he turned to face us, his expression was blank. "I couldn't find them," he said. "Find who?" I asked. "The person. They were just gone." We walked him back to camp in silence. He didn't say a word the entire way. That night, none of us slept, because just after 2 a.m., the music came back. Only this time it wasn't across the lake. It was right outside our tents. We froze inside our tents. It started with just a few soft piano notes, the same haunting melody from the first night. But this time, it was close, like just beyond the nylon wall close. I could see Marcus's silhouette through the tent wall, completely still. I knew he was holding his breath like I was. The music stopped. Silence. Then, slow, deliberate footsteps. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Right between our tents. Then a whisper. Not a normal whisper. This was harsh, ragged, like someone trying to imitate human speech but not quite getting it right. I couldn't understand what it said, but it was right outside. I heard Jenna gasp. Marcus grabbed the flashlight, but when he turned it on, nothing. Just our breath and panic. Then something hit the side of the tent. Hard, it was like a fist or a face, pressing the fabric in until it bowed just inches from my head. I scrambled back, heart beating so loud I thought I'd black out. Marcus unzipped the tent and burst out, yelling, "Get away!" I followed right after him, but no one was there. The woods were dead silent again. We all stood outside, flashlights trembling, staring into nothing. Until Jenna pointed. On the picnic table in the middle of our site, where we hadn't left anything, there was now a single item sitting perfectly centered. A small, battery-powered speaker, still warm, still on, but not playing anymore. We checked the area. No footprints, no broken twigs, no sign anyone had come or gone. Just that speaker. And something scratched into the wood beneath it, like it was carved with a rock or a knife. You're not supposed to be here. That's when we packed. Right then and there. Middle of the night, pitch black forest or not, we didn't care. We hiked out in near silence. The trail felt twice as long on the way back. Every snapping twig, every gust of wind had us flinching. The sun started rising just as we reached the car, not that it made us feel any safer. Once we got back to town, we all crashed at Marcus's place. No one really spoke about what happened. It felt like if we said it out loud, it would make it real again. A couple days later, Marcus texted us something that made my stomach turn. He'd found the campground listed online again, but this time under a totally different name. Same photos, same forest, same little lake. Except now it was advertised as abandoned. The listing had no reviews, no host info, just a weird bio that said, "Experience true isolation. No distractions, no signals, no one else." We reported it, tried to find someone responsible. Never heard back. And then, about a week after we got home, Jenna messaged us in our group chat. She'd just gotten a package in the mail, no return address. Inside, that same tiny speaker. And carved into the back of it, in shaky handwriting, were the words, "You left too soon." None of us have been camping since. And if you ever find a quiet little campground with no signal, no reviews, and a price that seems too good to be true, don't go.